Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. This is Rusty and Heather Bryant with you. We are in the middle of a really fun series that we started about 3 weeks ago, where we just started talking about the different seasons of marriage. And we kind of did an intro 3 weeks ago, and then we jumped right into the honeymoon stage of marriage. And then we jumped last week to the it was infants and toddlers, which was fun for us to talk about because
we've had so many fun comments about that one. People just laughing through it with us.
Yes, we've actually had comments about all of them. You know, I put a post up, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I just asked the question, what has been, or what do you think is the hardest season? And it was really interesting to see some of those because there were a couple that said the honeymoon season was the hardest.
Sure.
And you know, when you and for some people it is, because it's that joining of two worlds that we talked about.
And unmet expectations.
Yes.
What you expect it to be versus what it ends up being.
Yep. And then, of course, the ones that are actually living through the infant and toddler stage, they're going to say it's that one.
Right,
and there's
absolutely.
no way it could be anything else.
Yeah.
Just the whole, I was talking with some friends of ours that have our toddlers right now, and it was so funny because he said, it doesn't matter. He said, I can go to bed and I could get 7-8 hours of sleep, and I wake up the next morning, I'm still exhausted.
Yep.
It just doesn't end.
It doesn't end. And you feel like it's never going to end.
Right. And that's one of the big things that we have been one of the big points we've been trying to put out through this whole series is the seasons, although they feel never ending and they feel so long and so hard when you're going through them, they do end. Mm-hmm. And then you move to the next one, and the next one has its own challenges and its own things that you have to deal with. But you look back and you go, well, man, it really wasn't as long as I thought it was.
Right.
And so here we are today, and we're at the season of marriage for those of you that may have kids that are like, I would say, school age, so just starting school, so kindergarten-ish, maybe even preschool, but kindergarten, preschool, up until sort of preteen stage. Because we'll talk about teenagers and
we're going to get somebody else to lead that one.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
No, we can do it.
We're still in that one.
We're in that one.
But we got one that's out of that stage. But So today we're doing this, and again, we want this to be for everybody. So you may not be at this stage yet, so this is great for you to listen to. Most of our listeners, I would imagine, we know the demographics of a lot of people. I bet there's probably a majority that are sitting in this stage right here. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that are past this stage, then you kind of get a chance to look back on it and enjoy the laughter. And we're not going to make fun of those that are in this stage, but just looking back at it, and you'll be able to look back with appreciation as well. So, I would almost say, I know we could really look at every single stage and go, that could be the hardest stage for some people.
Sure. I think all of them are. I mean, for somebody out there, each stage is the hardest.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
I think that for me, this stage could be the most challenging and trying on your marriage.
Right. Well, and what I was going to say real quick is, and we've known what we were going to talk about and have been talking about it for a few weeks, and I catch myself thinking about it throughout the week, and I don't want to get into parenting advice, you know,
Right,
like a lot of what we could say is do this, don't do that, you know, as far as like parenting, but that's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
This is how to make your marriage better while going through this stage.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we'll have to touch on parenting a little bit because it's part of it, but our focus is how to maintain or better your marriage through it. Mm-hmm.
So I think that part of the reason, so there's the challenges to me and why I think that it can sometimes be the toughest on your marriage is because when you're in the honeymoon stage, there's a lot of, the honeymoon, there's a lot of fun, there's not as many responsibilities when you don't have the children yet. And not that there's not challenges there's plenty of them, and we've talked about it. But then when you move into the toddler and the infant stage, you know, as hard as that is, there is this kind of building of a teamwork because it's almost impossible to do it alone, and you're learning how to. So there is. Go ahead.
I need to shout out to all those single mamas or single daddies out there because there's people who do it.
Yes.
But because this is a marriage one, we need to talk about how to do it as a team.
Yeah.
But gosh, there's people out there that do it and they do it well and they crush it.
They're crushing it. Yes. And, you know, we applaud those people, and, you know, and that's part of why they are doing something that is not supposed to, that's not supposed to be that way. You're supposed to be a team and working through, and, you know, whatever the circumstances might be, there's people in that situation, and they're awesome.
Yep.
Those people are awesome. Yep. But so I do think, though, that you start that teamwork process, and you kind of, you're a little bit laughing your way through that stage because you really are just like, okay, I can't ever get rested. Kids are always, this, that. They're always demanding of something. There's never any time for us as a married couple. But you're doing that together. And sometimes I think that that's easier than this next stage because in this next stage, it has the greatest tendency to pull marriages apart because of all of the different directions and different things that you're going through.
And you become a little bit more isolated. There's a tendency to do that.
Yeah. And when you get to the end of this stage, sometimes you don't know how to fix what has happened during that stage. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about some ways that you can effectively navigate this stage, you know, some of the challenges that you're going to face if you're not in this stage yet, but then also if you are there, what are some things that you can do to make sure that your marriage is thriving in this stage and not just surviving.
That's right. Let's do it.
All right. So some challenges. What are, the obvious is just the activities that the kids have. And, you know, I know that there's a lot of parents that are out there, probably better parents than we are, because they put limits on things that their children do. Yep. And, you know, so they may be much more structured and organized when it comes to this. But I do think a lot of parents or marriages fall into the category that we fell into, where it was just like complete chaos.
Doing it all. So many activities. And, you know, there were good things. And maybe we should have said no to some things. But it was just, we have 2 kids. And there's a lot of people out there that have even more than 2 kids. And so being torn in all these different directions because your kids are doing so many things. And some of them, it's not even that you're choosing. Like even school and homework. And oh my goodness, I just thought of homework. I just thought of coming home. Okay, so I'm a teacher. And can I just say I hate homework?
Oh my goodness.
Like it's going to get controversial here in a minute, but I don't like homework because we work them so hard at school, and when they get home, they need time to be kids and to do all of these activities that
that they do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So,
and we want them, I mean, you want your kids to be well-rounded and to try things.
Sure.
And nobody wants to put them in this little box and say, this is what you're going to do. And so that's why we tend to find ourselves bouncing around to so many things. And so part of the challenge becomes, I think that at this stage, you get so busy and separated from each other as a family because you've got the husband that's going off and taking care of this child and getting this child to these activities. The wife is doing these activities and taking.
And then you swap.
Yeah, and then you kind of cross paths at some point. Maybe who's grabbing Chick-fil-A tonight, that kind of thing. And, and then it's like, well, who's going to actually do the chores around the house? Like, we got to actually have some clean clothes and some clean dishes and, all of that kind of stuff is going on. And I think that this is also that stage where some families run into the dad starts gravitating towards any boys that are in the family. The girls or the wives start gravitating a little bit more towards the females because those are just the natural things. So it's kind of like the dad may say, "Oh, I'm not going to dance. I'm not taking the kid to cheerleading. You do that.
Right.
I'm going to soccer practice or baseball practice or whatever, And I'm not saying that everybody does that, but there's that tendency.
Sure.
And then you start losing that connection, and then it becomes kind of a house divided sometimes. I thought about this today. What about the families where one spouse really thrives in the chaos and the activity and enjoys it, and the other one is like, oh no, we're not doing all that. We're going to stay home. We're going to have dinner every night right here at the house together. We're going to say no to things.
Right.
Then, I mean,
sure.
What do you do?
Because
there's definitely families out there that are like that.
Sure.
So, what are some other challenges that you thought of for this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one that I thought about was just communication in all of this. I think that a lot of times, and I can remember times where I felt like the only time we talked was when we were deciding who was doing what. Like who's going to the grocery store, who's doing this, who's doing that, who's taking one child here, the other child there. Like that was the only time we talked, was just the business part. And, we learned after that. So I hope that people are able to learn this before or while you're going through it. We learned after the fact that so much of our communication struggled during that time because we weren't purposeful in talking about other things. And so communication was really the thing that kept coming up in my mind. I also, there's a lot going on with siblings, like one being good at one thing and one being good at something different. And maybe, I don't want to say taking sides, but I think that, like, I can remember me being more tenderhearted towards something than you were, or you thinking we should stand firmer on something, or me saying, there's that differencing in parenting styles that starts to affect your marriage because you think they're not doing it right, or they're not getting your back, or, it just kind of damages your relationship because of something that's going on with the kids, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The big thing here, I believe, is communication. Because when you start talking, if you were to say to me when I was at that stage, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this. Like, I'm too tired to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? And then you're just emotionally drained. You're tired of running all over the place. And it just becomes, it's like, no, we'll figure it out,
And you get frustrated during the week, during the day, and by the time the kids are in bed and it's time to talk about it, you're like, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
And you're just
mad. I'm mad because you didn't do what I thought you should have done today, or there's still 563 dishes in the sink, and I don't want to talk about whose responsibility that is.
Yep.
We both, and you have a lot of marriages where both mom and dad work. And so there's just a lot that if you don't communicate and tell expectations, or tell, what's what you feel like your spouse should be helping with. If you don't have those conversations, it's going to drive a wedge between you. And then that's when the isolation and the frustration and the discouragement takes root.
Yeah.
And then it just grows from there.
I think that if we had to just give like one big piece of advice, one suggestion for this stage of marriage, this season of marriage, it would be to begin to learn to over-communicate with each other. And
like almost annoyingly so.
Yeah, and I think that the biggest part of this is you said, it seems like the only conversations you have are the business conversations. How do we get from point A to point B for this week or for tomorrow or whatever it is? And then you sort of lose the emotional connection, the intimacy, because it has become you're the CEOs of your house.
That's
and you're running a business. But at the same time, I thought about that, and like as a business, if you're running a business and you've got other people that are a part of your business, you have a staff meeting. And if you don't have a staff meeting, then how do you expect somebody to do things that you're expecting them to do if they don't even know? And so as hard as it sounds, you need to start having a business meeting, a family business meeting. And, maybe your children are smaller and they don't necessarily need to be a part of that. We did have a little season of our marriage where every Sunday night, I think it was like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, we all four got together and we looked at our calendar for the week. We said, this is, I think we even looked at lunch schedules so we could say, oh, you need to pack a lunch this day. Do you like this lunch? Those kind of things.
And dinners, like when are we going to be home for dinner?
Exactly.
Or when do we need to grab Chick-fil-A?
Yep.
Those type things.
So I would make the suggestion that even if it's short, you're not meeting type people, which we are not, you put that in your arsenal. That's in
your what?
In your arsenal. Not. Oh my goodness! I didn't say.
I was like, whoa,
and pull it out of your.
Stick it in your arsenal.
We're having just too much fun. But it is important that you start having a time where you can talk through the coming up week. Who's responsible for taking this child here? Who's responsible for the lunches? Who's responsible for dinners? Who's going to be responsible for the clothes, the dishes? All of those kind of things. You have to have meetings or communication to get from point A to point B. Now, at the same time that we're saying that, those can't be your only communication.
Not. And that's why if you set a time, and, it's easy for us to say, because when we started doing it, our boys were a little bit older. I mean, I don't think that they were teenagers yet, but they were a little bit older. They weren't like preschool.
Right.
But we had those meetings, and we were able to do it once a week. Some people may go, oh, I can't do a week at a time. Maybe the night before we talk about the next day. I would encourage the week. The reason for that is then your business part, communication, that A-B business is done.
And then you can just check in each night
or
each day.
Sure.
And
update. Like, I know I said I was going to get to that load of laundry today, but it didn't happen. But don't worry, I see it, and I'm going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that your spouse isn't thinking, they just didn't do it. I guess they expect me to do it. There's so much that we just assume that's what our spouse was thinking, when in reality it's probably not. Like if I said, would you mind doing that one, there's a load of towels in the dryer, could you please do that at some point this afternoon? Sure, babe, I got it, I'll do it. And you don't, well, I know you well enough to think he just didn't get to it. But there are some people out there that would be like, he didn't do that on purpose, now I have to do it. I'd ask him to do one thing and he can't even do that, and then it just causes this. And so it's over communication. It is, I know that I was supposed to do that. I'm using laundry, whatever. I know I was supposed to get the oil changed today. And I just want you to know I haven't forgotten. I just didn't get to it today. So it'll be on my agenda for the next couple of days. So just over communicate, because it keeps misunderstandings from happening. And that's when problems arise. When you that's when little things take root that become big things.
I'm not going to lie. I'm getting a little stressed out just thinking back on it. So we feel you, because we've been in this season. And so we want to make sure that you're enjoying it, because it is, at the same time, as much as stressful as it was, it was also probably the most impactful on our family.
That's right. And I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? When you were talking about that while ago, like this child going this way with this parent and the other parent, as much as you can, try to do family stuff.
Do it all together.
Do it all together. Now, we have our our weekends that you took one child to Baton Rouge and I took another child to Birmingham? Absolutely. It happens. And we only had 2 kids. So, we know families that have 6 kids.
And having to send them with other people.
Absolutely. It's, I'll take this child, you take that child, you're going with so-and-so, you're going, I get it. But as much as you can, don't fall into, okay, only one kid has something this weekend, so you take them there and let me get some things done at home. Or me and the girl are going to stay here while you and the boy go to the soccer tournament. Because if there's nothing for you and the girl to do, go with them. Like, be a family. That is going to strengthen your family, and it's going to strengthen your marriage. Now, are you all going to get home on Sunday night and be tired, and the clothes need to be washed for the next? Absolutely. That's going to happen, and it's part of it. Like, don't let that freak you out. Take a breath. Know that the week's coming, and know that it's a season. But know that because some of our very best times,
for sure,
and I can easily say for our family, but for our marriage too, was just being on the road together. And you have them confined in the car. They're not going to the movie with friends. They're not, of course they have their phones, or movies or whatever. But it is forced time that you're together and you're making memories and you're in hotel rooms. And those are some of the most fun times that you can have.
We sent out an email this week to our email list. And if you want to look, because I know you had some questions that some people had asked, and we had some emails that came in too of just and they weren't all about this particular season, but one of them was exactly what you were talking about, because they said that our family seems to be really tight. Our boys are really close to us. And honestly, this was the season. That season was the season that did it, because part of it, and again, every family is different, and every family has different beliefs and values and things that they're trying to put structure to their family. For us, we were really, really busy, and it was okay, because part of that was they weren't at home. They weren't, we have an upstairs bonus room, so they weren't just stuck upstairs playing video games or whatever. We were just constantly active, but together active. And so our kids really have not known anything except that. It's like, okay, well, honestly, you can count like probably less than 10 soccer games for either one of our kids that we haven't both been to.
Right.
Like, we were just always as best we could. And we had the spreadsheet. That said, this kid is here, this kid is here, this weekend.
It was color-coded.
Yeah, which weekend do we have to get hotels, do we need, all of that. So, the craziness, yes, we were there, but it's what made us tight as a family. And to this day, our family is very tight. So that was the question that was asked was a great question. Did we cover the things that people had asked?
Oh, yeah. I think the biggest one was about communication, and sibling
rivalry.
Yep, that rivalry week.
You mentioned that.
And again, that's more on the parenting side. Some of the questions we got were more on, like siblings fighting and navigating sex talks and things like that. Like those are more parenting things that we could do at some point, but I just don't want to. This one is more about the marriage through that stage. And, we talked about the A-B conversation a good bit, like the business meeting. And we're like, business meeting is point A to point B. It's really simple. Who's doing this? Who's doing that? Assignments, all of that. But the other type of conversation, we briefly mentioned, but that was so important.
Yeah.
The other part of conversation is not to point. This is, how was your day? Did anything happen today that I need to know about, that I can help with, that I can pray for you with? Those are the types of conversations that I believe most marriages in this stage are missing out on.
For sure.
We did. We absolutely did. We missed out on a lot of good communication that wasn't about our children,
Well, I mean, look, we can, we're always very transparent, and let's just be honest, our marriage crisis happened during this stage.
That's right.
And so, the things
we had a fourth grader and a kindergartner right before that, right before fourth grade and kindergarten.
Yep.
I mean, that's
so it was exactly the stage. So we feel that, and we understand how crucial this is, and some of that probably is because we failed in some areas and communication is probably a big part of it. We were not connected. And that even goes, I hope this part goes without saying, but there still needs to be intimacy, physical intimacy too. And again, that's a massive challenge, starting from the time you have infants, and then of course even moving on into this stage, because I don't know if y'all have realized this, but the kids are always there. They're always there. And so it just makes things challenging. But those are the things that you just have to make a priority, because when those seasons are over, you can't get to a point where you have to relearn how to do everything, because some people never survive that and never come back from that. So yeah, I think that this particular stage did we catch it all?
Yeah, there were a couple of like ideas for fun and finding prayer warriors. Like I know we can't camp there a while, but that finding ideas for fun, that's just doing things you and your spouse need to do, but then also you can do that including your children.
Yeah. Well, we're going to shut it off here, because we've gotten to our time that we like to try to keep things under. But I would say there are a couple of questions that people have sent in to us, and we haven't necessarily answered them. And one of the things that I was thinking would be really good is when we finish the seasons, maybe we have a Q&A at the very end where we're just going through and answering questions that may be because when we talk about something, we may not address it, and people will come back and say, oh, well, what about when this happened in that season? And instead of going back and talking about that season all over again, maybe we just answer some questions at the end.
Perfect.
So that would be really great. If you guys are listening, if you want to use the contact form.
That last question for that.
Yeah, there's some good.
Because I don't think we covered it.
There's probably a couple on there that we could go back to. But if you would send us something by email or on our contact form on our website, which is theredeemedmarriage.com, and send us your questions, or through social media. Just go on there and send us a question about any season, some things you might want to know. We'll be happy to address those if it's an upcoming season of marriage, or if we've already dealt with it, we'll have the question and answer time that we can come back and revisit some of it. So thank you guys for listening. I love the fact that you're engaging with us because you're listening, and it's been fun to revisit some of this, and we're looking forward to this next one because we're still halfway in that stage. We do have a teenager still, so we know that there's plenty to discuss there. But we hope that you guys have a great week. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know how we can help with you in your marriage. Until next time, we'll see you then.